Welcome to Death Row Diaries, where every Friday we tell a victim's stories first because their stories deserve to be told. Today we tell a story of Irene Grainger Graves and Christopher Bryan Lee. Irene Graves was 41 years old and a single mother of three children. She worked three jobs to provide for her family. On November 1st, 1997, Irene was working an overnight shift at a convenience store on Lawrence Road in Greenville, South Carolina. That night, 19-year-old Freddie Eugene Owens and 18-year-old Stephen Golden entered the store during an attempted robbery. According to prosecutors, Irene couldn't open the store's safe. She was shot in the head and killed. The two men fled with only $37.29. Irene's children would never see their mother again. Her youngest daughter, Ensley, was only 10 years old. Years later, she described the unimaginable experience of losing her mother as a child. She said there was no words to process it. Instead, she simply had to get through the next day, then the next moment, then the next year. Irene had been a person her children depended on, and suddenly, she was gone. Freddie Owens was arrested days later. His co-defendant, Stephen Golden, eventually pleaded guilty to voluntary manslaughter and testified against Freddie. Stephen told prosecutors that Freddie was the person who shot Irene. Prosecutors also presented evidence that the two men wore different masks during the robbery and argued that the man wearing a ski mask, identified as Freddie, was the shooter. Freddie maintained that he did not kill Irene, but in February of 1999, a jury found him guilty of murder, armed robbery, and conspiracy. He was sentenced to death, and then something happened that made the case even more disturbing. Less than 12 hours after Freddie was convicted of Irene's murder, he killed another inmate while awaiting sentencing. The victim was Christopher Bryan Lee, a 28-year-old man who had been jailed on a traffic charge. According to court records, Freddie gave investigators and the court a detailed confession describing the attack. He was charged with Christopher's murder, but was never tried for it. His confession, however, became a major part of the evidence prosecutors used during Freddie's death penalty proceedings. Freddie's death sentence wasn't straightforward. His original death sentence was overturned and he was resentenced. Then that sentence was overturned as well. Ultimately, Freddie was sentenced to death 3 times. He spent decades on death row while his attorneys continued appealing his conviction and sentence. During his time in prison, Freddie converted to Islam and began using the name Khalil Divine Black Son Allah. Then in 2024, something happened that once again put Freddie's conviction under scrutiny. Stephen Golden, the man whose testimony helped convict Freddie, came forward with a sworn statement claiming that he had falsely identified Freddie as the shooter. Freddie's attorneys argued that Stephen had allegedly made a secret agreement with prosecutors to avoid receiving a death sentence or life in prison. They asked the courts to reconsider the case and argued that Freddie's execution should be stopped. Freddie also asked South Carolina Governor Henry McMaster for clemency. His attorneys pointed to the fact that Freddie was only 19 years old when Irene was killed, as well as the abuse and trauma he had experienced throughout his childhood. But the courts rejected the final appeals. Governor McMaster also denied clemency. On September 20th, 2024, Freddie Eugene Owens was executed by lethal injection at age 46. He became the first person executed in South Carolina in 13 years. He did not give a formal final statement, but while the state was carrying out the execution, two families was left carrying decades of grief. Irene Graves' children had spent nearly 27 years without their mother, and Christopher Bryan Lee's family had spent decades waiting for justice for his death as well. Christopher's family once said that every time they thought the nightmares was finally coming to an end, another legal delay brought the trauma back. Irene Graves wasn't just a victim at the center of a death penalty case. She was a mother. She worked three jobs to take care of her children. She went to work that Halloween night expecting to come home. She never got that chance. Her children never got the chance to grow up with their mother. And nearly 3 decades later, the questions surrounding a man convicted of killing her continued all the way to his execution. Do you believe Freddie Owens was rightfully convicted, or do you think the questions surrounding Stephen Golden's testimony deserved another look? Let me know what you think in the comments. Rest in peace to Irene Grainger Graves and Christopher Bryan Lee. Their lives matter. And if you made it this far, thanks for watching. Until next time.